Hey, what's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives. I got my brother Austin here with me week after week. It's episode number 81. And Austin, we're Halloween Lives. We're the podcast that loves two things. What are those two things?
They are Halloween and Halloween. And we are big on both this October. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. We are lucky to have you. How are you doing, Blaine?
Dude, I'm good, man. I'm like full-fledged Halloween spirit, in the mode, doing things. It is, as of the recording of this episode, it is October 8th. I realize it's not going to be the date that this is posted, but as of the recording of this episode, it's October 8th. And I have not missed a day yet for movies. As a matter of fact, and we can talk about this and get into this here in a little bit, there has been multiple days where I've watched multiple movies. So I'm well ahead of the curve. I know last year, I talked about it on the last episode. I think it was that it was either the last episode or the episode before that. I can't remember because that was back in August when we did episode 79. But I remember talking about how like my October last year just sucked. I was out of town for work. It was just not a great October. Didn't get to watch a lot of scary movies. So I feel like in a way I'm playing a little bit of catch up this year, and damn, it feels good. Like I'm full fledged. Like the house is decorated, the yard is decorated. You and I are working this haunted house thing. We're planning this haunted house thing in the town that I live in. And dude, it's like it's full fledged Halloween right now. But how about you, man? Are you still doing the thing? I know we can talk a little bit about what you and I did on Saturday. That was a blast. But yeah, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I think similar to your situation, I was kind of behind the ball last October. And for anybody that's kind of newer to the show, we like to do 31 nights of Halloween, where you're doing something at least spooky, but typically watching like a horror movie or multiple horror movies. I like to include nights that, like we're working on the haunt as something that would count, or if you're working on your Halloween costume, if you're decorating your house, those are kind of the things that would equate to a righteous night in the 31 nights of Halloween. And yeah, dude, I've been on the ball this year. I think similarly to you, it was just, we were both kind of in shitty situations as far as how busy we were last October. So like this really has felt right. I've been able to watch multiple horror movies. I'm ahead of the ball as well. We're absolutely going to hit 31. We're probably going to be somewhere around the 40 mark, at least the way things are going right now. And it's been really good. I know we talked last episode how we both watched Rob Zombie's Halloween on the first night. And then I am 2/3 into the Blumhouse trilogy, the David Gordon Green trilogy. As we speak tonight, I am going to cap it with everybody's undeniably favorite movie in the franchise, Halloween Ends. So please write comments about how much you hate it. It never gets old. Blaine, how's it going for you?
Yeah, well, I haven't started on the trilogy yet. I haven't. And truth be told, I've only watched one Halloween franchise film so far this year, and it has been the Rob Zombie OG. I don't want to say OG, the Rob Zombie remake. That's the only one that I've watched so far. We've talked about this in the show. We probably talked about it last week. I always watch that one October 1st. I don't know why. I do have a hot take that I want to give regarding that film a little bit later on in this episode. But yeah, man, I've watched a lot of. Last night I watched the new Salem's Lot remake, and I got to be honest, I didn't hate it. Like I had heard some things, some people that were writing some things online. I didn't really like get into like the spoiler thing. I didn't want to know too much about it. But some of the things that I did hear, people were like, "Oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like that." So maybe in a very Halloween Ends-esque fashion, maybe I went into it with some lower expectations, and I actually liked it. Like I thought the cinematography for this freaking film was amazing. The lighting, the score was really good. There was a lot that I really liked about it. And I love that story just in general. Like it's a great, I've never read the book. It's obviously Salem's Lot is based on the book by Stephen King under the same name. But you have the film from, I think it was 1979. I don't know it for a fact, but I think it was like 78, 79, something like that. And then there was Return to Salem's Lot, and then they remade Salem's Lot back in I think it was like the late 90s, early 2000s, which I never saw that version of it. It was like a TV miniseries when, that was a lot of fun. There was a time in like the late 90s and early 2000s where we were getting all these Stephen King mini series that were coming out. There was Salem's Lot, there was Rose Red. They remade, did The Shining. What was the Storm of the Century, which if you've not seen Storm of the Century, that's a great one. I love watching Storm of the Century. It's about a small town in Maine, off the coast of Maine, that's getting hit by this blizzard, this snowstorm, and the devil comes into the town with this blizzard. And like they were coming out with all these little mini series, and like Rose Red. Have you ever seen Rose Red?
Dude, I think you and I grew up watching Rose Red.
Oh, I know I did. Yeah, I had the DVD. I still have it on my shelf here somewhere. But
that's not. But mommy, I am your daughter.
No, that's the others. That's the others.
The others. Okay, Rose Red. I'm gonna Google it while you talk because I do think I've seen it. Yeah,
Rose Red. It's just an awesome. It's a mini series. It's about this house called Rose Red, and it's basically. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's been a few years. I don't remember if they're like tearing it down or what. I think it's like set to be demolished, and they're allowing this college group of basically paranormal investigators to come in and do like one last investigation. But there was just like the whole way the story was written with Rose Red was fantastic. I loved the backstory that they portrayed and how it kind of went. Like it was very for those of you who've seen American Horror Story, the original, how they really told like the backstory of the house and like all the different owners and people who would live there and things like that. They did a really good job with that, in Rose Red in that film. I'm pretty sure you can watch Rose Red on YouTube for free. If you've not seen it, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's like 3.5, 4 hours because it was split up over 2 nights when it originally aired on TV back in, once again, I think it was the late 90s. I think I was like either in late middle school or early high school when it came out, but love it. So I'm going to probably try to watch that one. And then The Night Flyer. That's another one that I freaking love by Stephen King too. And one I'll definitely be watching at some point this October, but
Isn't it a mini series as well?
Yeah, but I think that one came out like in 91 or 93 or something like that. It was early 90s. And that may have been what like kicked off the whole Stephen King thing. I guess I don't know because I don't remember at that time. I was pretty young yet, but I just remember like being a teenager, and there was all these Stephen King miniseries it just seemed like it was like every other year we were getting a new one. And I didn't watch them all, but they're all good. But I'll run through my list so far. Maybe we can do this throughout the entire month. We can just kind of like update people on where we're at. So once again, as of the recording of this episode, I am 13 films in for the month of October. It's the 8th today, so that tells you I've watched a few more than just one movie a day in some cases, but watched The American Scream. We talked about that last week. Technically, I did that on the 30th, but whatever. Halloween 2007, Children of the Corn remake, which I actually kind of liked. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe my taste in films is just getting worse. I don't know, but I kind of went into it thinking that it was going to be bad, and I actually kind of liked it. Like there was some cheesy parts. There were some things I definitely didn't like, but I didn't hate it. Dark Harvest. I know we talked about that on the last episode that I'm reading the book and I wanted to see it. Oh my God, bro. It was probably, I don't want to say one of the worst movies that I've seen in recent years or worst horror movies, but it had so much potential. I think we talked about this last week, like the cinematography and just the vibe and the feel. Like it felt like Halloween in this film. They did a great job with that. But the story made no sense whatsoever. Like legit, there was a point in the film, and I'm going to talk about another movie with it this just happened as well, because I feel like I've lost 2 different nights to 2 shitty movies on my list here. But this was one of them that I was like, what is happening right now? Like what is going on right now? I have no idea. You've not seen Dark Harvest yet, right?
No, but I remember, and I don't know if we talked about it on the show or if one of the times you and I were hanging out in the last couple of weeks, but you were like, hey, man, the book is kind of hard to follow too. Like it's difficult to go ahead, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I said last week. It was like the book, I was having trouble following the book, and I'm like, well, the movies should be much easier to understand than any book, right? Or any of the books. And in this case, both equally confusing. And but whatever. Dark Harvest. If anybody liked that film, hit us up in the comments. Let us know if you liked it. If you did, well, let us know either way, because I want to hear from people, because I think there was a lot of anticipation with that film, and in my opinion, it fell flat, like really, really flat. Then The Taking of Deborah Logan, which I've seen before. Watched that one at work. Also, we watched the remake of the Amityville Horror from 2005. And if you're saying at work, remember, I'm a firefighter. We do sit around from time to time, and when we're not doing all kinds of crazy stuff, I do sit around from time to time. And
sounds like a pretty easy job to me.
It is. Man. It's such a cake job, like stress-free, does not make me want to drink, does not make me want to do anything. It's the easiest job in the world. I would highly encourage anybody in today's society to go do this, because there's no stress with that job whatsoever. But we did that night. We did get to watch two different movies. We watched the Taking of Deborah Logan and the Amityville Horror remake. Everybody knows I'm a big Amityville guy, so that movie isn't necessarily my favorite. But hey, I got to watch scary movies at work, and I wasn't going to argue with people when they were like, "Oh yeah, let's watch this," because I just wanted to watch something scary. The Strangers Chapter 1. Once again, disappointed. Like, there was no need to remake this movie. The first one, I know you liked the first one, and you just watched the first one with me not that long ago, like in the last few years, right?
Yeah, I actually think the first time I ever watched The Strangers was about 2 years ago with you. Yep. And now I watched that in between Friday the 13th this year and October 1st. It was kind of in my build up to
That's October. Right. I remember you saying that. Yeah. And it's a great, like, awesome film, right?
It's one of the best as far as like very simple. I mean, I think it's a lot like Halloween 1978 in the sense that it's like simple idea, but I love that you don't really get a great motive for why these people are doing it. Right. Why are you doing this to us? Because you answered, or you let us in, or whatever. Home. You were home. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. I think it's similar to, like, if Michael Myers could speak, that's what he would kind of say. No, I love the first movie. I think it's great.
Yeah. Did you ever see the second one, Pray at Night?
No, I've seen that one on I don't know what streaming service. I see it every once in a while. Is that one any good? Have you seen that one?
It's better than Chapter 1 in my opinion. I thought Chapter 1 was terrible. Like, it was basically a remake, only like a shittier version of it, which I know most of them are. But this was like you could tell they were just like, no, we want to remake this movie in some cases almost like beat by beat, and it was just done shittier, like worse acting, shittier. Just it wasn't that good. It didn't have the same creep factor that the original one did, because I think, to your point, like, that was what was cool about it. Was just like they were just doing it because you were there. Like, it could have happened to anybody else. And it's a great tie-in, like with Michael Myers and like Laurie, because there is one of the theories is that he really just became obsessed with her because she was the one who came to the porch and dropped off the key. If that had been Linda or Annie or anybody else in that film, he probably would have had that same exact fascination, right? If you're ignoring the brother-sister angle. So yeah, in the case of The Strangers, it was really good with that, because it just left your mind to sort of run with what could be happening here. Plus, I just love, I got the mask. I just actually recently put the mask up. I freaking love the way that mask looks, like the man in the mask, just a badass look. Like, it's so simple, but so scary at the exact same time. And like that scene when Liv Tyler is like standing in the living room, like in the living room or the dining room, and she's just standing there, and you see him just sort of like step out of the shadows. Like, bro, that's creepy. That is creepy.
Can I tell you something crazy about that shot? I was watching that with my fiance, and I'm watching it because I know that scene is like magic. And no reaction out of this one who's never seen the movie before. The next shot goes in. I'm like, did you even see the guy? And she's like, no. And so we had to reverse that little piece.
Really? She never saw him?
No.
Oh, yeah. No. That's like, that, I feel like that scene. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that scene is almost like one of those iconic film scenes that we've gotten over the last like decade. Like, if you're gonna take like snippets from horror movies, that would make it, because that's just such a creepy ass scene.
Yeah.
So Strangers Chapter 1, again, I'm not going to do like some big, I'm not going to spoiler warning, anything like that. Just didn't care for it. Thought it was a shittier version of the first one. Watched Trick or Treat, not Trick or Treat, Trick or Treat from 1986. Love that film. Sammy Kerr. It's a great horror rock and roll mix. It's the one you'll recognize it as soon as you see it. It's like Gene Simmons is in it from Kiss. Ozzy Osbourne plays like a I don't know what he is, like a preacher kind of, like it's like cheesy and fun, and it's got some good Halloween vibes in it. Great soundtrack too, by the way. There's a band that plays in it, is called, what the hell are they called? It's not Thin Lizzy, but something like that. It's not Thin Lizzy. Somebody will say it down in the comments, but whoever it is, it doesn't matter. They're a great band, great 80s rock and roll hair band. Watched Idle Hands, which is not a horror movie, but a great Halloween film because it's got really good Halloween vibes with Devin Sawa and his crazy hand. I can remember renting that movie back from Hollywood Video back in the day when I was a kid and absolutely loving that one. Then this next one. Late Night with the Devil.
Oh.
Let's talk about Late Night with the Devil for a second, shall we? And again, this is going to be spoiler free. So if you've not seen it, don't worry. Don't change that dial. Don't change the dial. You don't need to, because I'm not going to give you anything. But I am going to say, might be one of the worst endings to any film that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
To the point going back to Dark Harvest and being confused. And I don't claim to be like some like super in-depth, intelligent dude who's got to like make rhyme or reason for everything that I see on the screen, because sometimes I know that it's just better left unsaid or untouched or whatever it might be. But dude, I legit for the last like 15 minutes of this film was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like what is happening right now?
Yeah.
And I don't know, you've seen this. You kind of warned me. You didn't like give me like, hey, you're not going to like it or anything like that. But you were like, I'm going to be very interested to hear what you have to say when you get done watching it. And I think I texted you. It was pretty late at night. It was like 11 or 11:30 at night. And I was watching. I was like, dude, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. I have no idea what's happening in this film.
Yeah, it's one of those movies, and I think we make a lot of fair comparison to the WNUF Halloween special, which in my opinion is like almost too similar as far as a concept, and I think WNUF does it better. I don't know the main actor in Late Night with the Devil. He was in like the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. He's been in a lot of different movies, but I like him, and I liked a lot of what goes on in his show that he has in that movie. But yeah, the ending is, there's cool parts in the ending, and then it gets like weird with some questionable special effects, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you.
You know, it's funny. I was texting back and forth with our cousin today, and I actually woke up. So I worked last night, so I woke up this morning to some text messages, and I woke up and he's like, he sent me, I don't remember if it was the trailer, if it was just a photo or what it was, but he sent me, he's like, you got to watch this. He's like, you got to watch it. And I was like, I did. And I hated it. Like, did not like it at all. Which is not entirely true, because there are portions of the film that I thought were really well done. But I was like, dude, you're literally like the first person that I've heard of that likes it. And not that I've talked to a ton of people, but I know I've talked to you. I remember talking with Marie about it. Like Marie talked about like she did not like this film. A couple other Instagram kind of horror people that I follow talked about it immediately. Like when it came out on Shudder, which I believe was last year, when it came out on Shudder, they watched it because there was like this buildup in anticipation, and they were like super let down, super disappointed, whatever. But I will say, if I'm going to give credit, I'm going to give two different like attaboys to it. Number one, and I don't know what the dude's name is, but the main character guy, the host, incredible job. Did a fantastic job, super believable, really good actor. Definitely took that role on and ran with it. He did a good job. Number two, I thought the girl who was possessed, like when she goes from being like normal to possessed, and like her hair is hanging down in front of her face, and her eyes are like they've obviously put contacts or something in her eyes or CGI or whatever, and they made her eyes like a yellowish color, and she's got like some stuff on her face. That was creepy. Like you look at her and you're like, damn, I wouldn't want to see that, So I liked those two things. I can understand, I guess, the similarities that I guess you could draw with WNUF, just because it's meant to be like you're actually watching this show. What I liked better about WNUF is it was more fun. It was more cheesy. I liked in WNUF. I liked the fact that they had commercials in it. They really didn't have that in Late Night with the Devil. It was more like I didn't care for like the back and forth where it would cut to like behind the scenes and then it would jump back into the show, because that part felt very fake to me. Like, were they making a behind the scenes documentary, or what's the reason why they were filming here?
Right.
And once again, I don't need these like answers to all the questions, but that part just didn't feel that felt like kind of forced, in my opinion. Like they're trying to tell the story when the show goes off the air or when it goes to commercial break or whatever. And it didn't work like WNUF did, because when WNUF went to a commercial break, they kind of like picked back up with the action or wherever they were at. You just got to see all these kind of like crazy, cool, nostalgic, commercials in the meantime,
Well, what I like about WNUF is you'll get like a very scary moment and you're like, oh my God, what is going on? And then it'll cut to commercial. And you just have to like sit with it and think about it for like a minute and a half before you're back into it. I like the way that they did it with the pacing there. But yeah, the pacing was a little off on this one. And the ending is certainly off on Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, not good. And then the last three films that I watched I actually watched The House is October Built 2 before I watched the first one. And the only reason I did that is because when I was trying to watch the original House is October Built, it wouldn't work at first. So I was like, well, I'm going to watch the second one then, because I was just in the mood to watch one of those films. So I watched number 2 and then the first one after that. And then obviously Salem's Lot, I watched that last night. But the thing that I wanted to mention with The House is October Built 2 is that so much of that film takes place in Minnesota. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, they do Screamtown, which you and I just went to on Saturday night. If you live in Minnesota or you're just looking to travel to Minnesota at this time of year, go to Screamtown. I promise you will not regret it. It's the biggest Halloween attraction in the state. Freaking amazing. We did VIP pass, got in there. It was awesome. Great way to kick off Halloween and or at least continue on the Halloween season. But Screamtown is in that movie, and the Dead End Hayride, which is just a little north of us, was in that movie. The Soap Factory, which no longer runs, was in that movie. And then the Zombie Pub Crawl, which I don't know if they still do that downtown Minneapolis or not, but that was in that movie as well. So like half that movie takes place in Minnesota, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, we got a lot of great attractions out here. And yeah, I would say Screamtown is probably my favorite. I do love Dead End Hayride as well. We've got Valley Scare. We've got all sorts of fun stuff up here if you're looking for a spooky time. And luckily we live here. So
yeah. So that's my list of films I've watched so far. Where are you at?
So right now, obviously knocked out Rob Zombie's Halloween on the first night. Night 2, I watched a couple of movies. I watched in the morning, I watched The Halloween Tree, which is one of our
so good.
It's one of like the foundational kind of Halloween spooky cartoon movies that we grew up on. It's based off of a Ray Bradbury novel. Definitely worth it for like a lighthearted, chill Halloween film. Then I moved on to The Nightmare Before Christmas. Everybody's seen The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's kind of a staple. You can watch it in October. You can watch it in December. And again, was just kind of looking for something light to kind of watch during the day. And then I moved on to a movie that I don't think I talked about last episode, and maybe I did. But I know I've talked about Smile on the show before. Talk to Me was the film that I watched, my fourth film that I've watched so far. And Talk to Me is absolutely one of my favorite new horror movies to come out. I think it's neck and neck with me it's neck and neck for me with Smile, which I also love, but kind of for different reasons. I know
like neck and neck for what?
Like best newer horror films to come out in the last couple of years. And I would say Talk to Me. I know you haven't seen it yet. I know you weren't a huge fan of Smile. I think you will like Talk to Me more. It's Essentially as believable as it gets for me when it comes to like what a possession would look like in the hands of some young high school kids, how things would be viral, and it would be kind of a trend or whatever. And I think it's great. I think the ending is actually great, which is hard to get with a lot of these films. And I'll leave it at that because I want no spoilers. Evil Dead Rise was the next film I watched, and I love this movie. I love the Evil Dead remake that came out in 2013, and I love Evil Dead Rise, which I believe came out 1 year ago at this time. It's absolutely awesome. Very cool kills, very cool special effects. There's obviously a lot of practical effects going on. And I think top to bottom, it's just a great spooky time. If you like Evil Dead, you know what you're getting yourself into. And I think Evil Dead Rise is just a fantastic addition. And I like that they don't necessarily have to be sequels to each other. They can kind of be their own stories. Next, I watched a film that I've watched almost every October, and I think it's going to be cut from the list moving forward.
Uh-oh.
It Chapter 1. I think I'm just burned out on the It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. They've kind of run their course for me. I think I will take a few years off, and maybe in like 5 years I will rewatch them when I don't really know them beat for beat anymore. And hopefully I'll love it as much as I did. You and I have both talked that It Chapter 1, especially Chapter 1, was like a film that when it came out, it was like, oh, horror is at its peak. This is fantastic. Obviously, all the folks involved with that film killed it. And I think It Chapter 2 is a fine follow-up. I like it better than a lot of people like it. But I know it's not, probably doesn't live up to the level of It Chapter 1 does. And I think It Chapter 1 does have a lot of sort of adjacent success due to Stranger Things and like that kind of era where we were getting younger casts in horror films, and it was kind of the trend of the time that we're actually still seeing kind of play out. A resurgence from kind of the 80s where you saw like The Goonies or Monster Squad, these kind of films. So yeah. After that, I watched one movie I will never, ever watch again, ever. It was Immaculate, which...
Oh, really? Don't tell me that. I wanted to watch that one.
Really? You can watch it. Okay, here's what I will say. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. Ending was a problem for me. There were some good things. You know what? I'm automatically feeling a little bit less aggressive about it. I will maybe watch it again at some point in my life, but it's not one that I'm going to like add to my Halloween.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's on my list. Like I will watch it this October for sure. Like I've been actually not watching it on purpose because I wanted to watch it in October. So I don't want to hear you say that, oh God, no, because I'll be like, fuck, I don't want to waste another. I've already wasted like 2 nights with shitty movies, so I don't want to waste another one. You know,
it's not nearly to the level of Late Night with the Devil.
Okay. All right. So that makes me feel better. Good.
This one is though VHS 2. Watched that 2 days ago, and the VHS series I loved when I was 13. There's probably a reason for that. I was 13 years old, and I have grown since then, and they're not as great to me anymore. But I think they are still great. There's a lot of like good, still small stories in each of them. The problem is you don't always get them back to back to back to back.
Sure.
So there's kind of
I've only ever seen the first one. Never.
I think the best short story in any of the VHS is the first film or the first short story in the first movie. They'll like
is that the girl in the hotel and the
she like her face splits down the middle
like
type deal.
Yeah, whatever the hell she is, a vampire or some kind of weird creature thing.
Siren, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then after VHS 2, like I said, the last 2 nights I've been doing Halloween and Halloween Kills, Halloween 2018, and then Halloween Kills.
Okay.
And tonight, going to finish it up with Halloween Ends and, get a fresh perspective on the trilogy. I know we talked about those not too long ago on the show, but
we did. Yeah.
That
Anything change in your opinion watching him this year after having not watched him now for another year?
I would still say Halloween Kills is one of the worst in the franchise. I think the acting and the writing in that film are downright terrible. There were so many lines that I wanted to like write down when I thought about talking about it for the show, but like from the very first line that Hawkins says, like, he needs to die and I'm gonna do it to him, or like I'm gonna be the one to do it. Like,
Right.
dude, it's just so over the top, and like there are good moments in that film, but a lot of them are surrounded about like, oh, what I think Brackett says some really dumb shit in it. He does say at one point, like, everyone, it's Halloween, Michael. Everyone's entitled to one good scare, which I get. You have to put in the movie, I guess. But dude, it's just like the delivery, and it's tough because the writing sucked, and there's only so much the actors can do with these lines to make them sound decent. So you kind of battle there. But yeah, I would say Halloween Kills. Love all the Michael Myers scenes, which is luckily a lot of the film. Love the scene with the older couple that are, you know, he's flying the drone. She's like yelling at him for flying, or no, she's flying the drone.
Sandra. Yeah, Sandra is flying the drone. I forget what his name is, but yeah.
Yeah, I like that scene. Love Lil John, Big John. I think their interactions, the whole house thing is great.
Yeah.
But other than that, the movie just is very forgettable, and the ending sucks. Big balls.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do, like when the writing is shit. And what's weird is like you had a little bit of bad writing sprinkled into 2018, and you had a little bit of bad writing sprinkled into Ends. But it was like it was like Kills. They just lost any filter for shitty writing whatsoever. They just were like, hey, we're doing this. And I don't know if, you know, like I feel like it personally, from a writing perspective, I feel like Kills was much more experimental than Ends was, as far as like what they did and what they said. Because yes, Ends, you know, took a sharp turn with the whole Corey Cunningham character. Michael wasn't in it a whole lot. Totally understand those arguments and why people don't like it. But I felt like just from a writing perspective, the writing and the lines were shit in Kills from like you said, the very beginning of the film until the end. And we just don't get that. Like, you get the peanut butter on my penis thing in 2018, and you get Laurie Strode like saying something about show them your tits, show the world your tits or whatever, and flipping. Like, you get some of those cringeworthy moments.
Yeah.
But literally, I mean, the Evil Dies Tonight thing is said 1,000 times in that film, and I was over it after hearing the first one. I didn't want to hear it again, and you get to hear it again and again and again and again, over and over and over throughout that entire movie. So I don't know like what was going on behind the scenes at that time with, you know, both David Gordon Green and Danny McBride writing this thing. You know, who knows, right? I mean, who knows if they just sort of like said, hey, 2018 was super successful. You guys do your thing. You do what you feel is best for this franchise. You clearly, you know, you hit a home run with 2018. Do what you think you got to do. We realize this is a trilogy. We're already giving you the green light for Ends, so make it your own. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But the writing was horseshit in that film, and it does make it like almost, I don't want to say unbearable to watch, but there are times in that film that it's just like, God, this is why people hate horror movies, because of this garbage. Like this is exactly why people shit on these films, not just Halloween, but like all horror films, right? I mean, it was funny because at work, I was kind of getting razzed by another guy who's like, dude, horror movies are so stupid. They're all so predictable and so fake. And it's like, yeah, I can understand if you've ever only watched like shitty films. I totally get it. But watch Hereditary, or watch, you know, The Witch, or, you know, a film like that like is a little bit deeper and has more of a backstory and like really builds up on characters. You won't be saying that. But when you see Pinhead, you know, part 7, yeah, you're like, or Hellraiser part 7, you're like, yeah, these films are shitty. Totally understand it. But I have a hard time defending Kills, because Kills is just really shitty.
Yeah, no, and I've said it to you plenty of times. I might have said it on the show. I think the way I view horror has always been a mountain of shit with a beautiful peak that is the best movies you'll ever see. I think for me, man, Kills just is not great. The dialogue writing is what brings it down. I mean, there are great parts to it. Love the Hawkins backstory, the flashback scene, seeing, even though it does kind of go into like Michael was looking out the window. I don't love the extra background, but I get why they put it in there for that ending.
Yeah. Still don't understand why the cell phone tower played such a big role in the franchise, because it really, outside of it burning to the ground in ends, which had nothing to do with anything. I don't know why it was such a big thing. And it was even like written about in the book more, like in the Kills novelization, there's more discussion on the cell phone tower. And I don't know, man, that was like a loophole or an empty hole that they just never like tried to fill or anything. It was just like they just threw this idea out there, and then it was just like left and deserted. But I get it. Okay, so you kind of just said something, and I want to build on what you just said, because it's my hot take.
Okay.
I have a hot take, and this isn't a hot takes episode, but when I was watching, and I've only watched Halloween 2007 so far, the remake, I've only watched that so far this October. So my views could change. But
okay,
I finished watching the remake, and I went onto my phone, and on my phone, I have a running list of ideas for the podcast. I'll think of something, I'll get an idea, I write it down because I don't want to forget it. Some of these ideas have come to fruition. Some of these ideas have come to fruition. Others have not. But this is one thing that I wanted to write down, because it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm going to give it right here. It's my hot take. Rob Zombie's Halloween is the worst Halloween film in the entire franchise.
Wow. Really?
Dude, I realized something when I was watching this movie. I cannot wait for this movie to be over when I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. Like, there are good parts of this film, but I've said this to you before. I've probably mentioned it on the show before. I feel like this movie, Rob Zombie's Halloween, is 20 to 25 minutes too long. Like the whole Laurie chase scene at the end of the film goes on way too long. Should have like the fact that she crawls up in the attic or some bullshit. He's like knocking down the ceiling. Like, she falls in the pool, and then she goes back in the house, and then they go out the window. Like, the whole thing, she gets torn out of the car. Like, you think the whole movie is over, and then she gets freaking ripped out of the car. Like, this movie goes on for far too long. But I've realized something, and it didn't just, it dawned on me watching it this time, but it's a repetitive thought that I have every time I watch this film. And it's that I cannot wait for this movie to be over.
Yeah.
And it kills me because I love this franchise. And yes, it's a Halloween film, and all of them hold a special place in my heart. But dude, this movie just like, I can't do it. I will continue to watch it year after year, but I'm glad I only watch it year after year. Once a year, I mean. And what I will say is that I don't think, and I know there's a ton of people out there right now that are like, dude, this guy's cracked. Rob Zombie's Halloween. Some people love it more than the original. I respect your opinion. Totally respect your opinion. But this film just does not do it for me. It misses the mark on so many different angles. I think it does a really nice job of giving like a good Halloween atmosphere that I don't think we get in the original. Like Rob Zombie, the set design and things like that, he does a really, really good job with it. But I just can't get over like the Hillbilly Myers thing. Yeah. I can't get over the fact that there's just too much told in the story. I can't get over the fact that it's almost like you're getting two movies in one movie, because you're like getting like this prequel thing, then you're getting a remake, but it's shittier. Just like I was kind of talking about what movie? The Strangers. Like, it's just a shittier version, in my opinion. Dude, every time I watch this movie, and it really hit home for me watching it this year. I was literally like, my leg was bouncing. Like, I'm watching this movie, and I'm just like, my leg is bouncing. Just like, please, I just want this to end. It was like, I was like Dan Chalice at the end of Halloween 3. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Like, I could not, I just wanted this movie to be over with. And that sucks. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for it, but I couldn't do it. I can't do it.
I think the best thing about both of the Rob Zombie films is Tyler Mane's portrayal of Michael Myers. I think it's the number one redeeming thing because I think Tyler Mane knocked it out of the park. But yeah, I will say rewatching it this past year, I'm glad it's the first movie I watch. I don't lead up to it at all because I agree. There's a lot not to love here. Now the old, it is kind of a product of its time. I think 2007. There were a lot of like gritty remakes of a lot of these franchises, and I think it was kind of the trend to make everything as like gross as possible. And yeah, I've got a lot of problems with this film that I didn't have a few years ago. That I think it just as times change, you realize why those creative choices don't hold up and don't like last as long as even some of the more creative choices in like the Halloween 4, 5, and 6 trilogy. There were absolutely things people did not like when those came out. But I think that they're a little bit more timeless because of just the way they didn't go overboard on freaking everything like Rob Zombie did, with his characters. And you talked about the Hillbilly Myers. Every character is almost a caricature in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It moves really quick. The dialogue, again, is not great in that film. You're such a slut, is all these girls say to each other. Okay, I'll let
I have one more thing that I want to add because I have one more hot take that I want to say. I had written down this one first, and then when the movie was over, I wrote down I think this is the worst movie in the entire franchise. But this is my other hot take. The trio of girls from Rob Zombie's Halloween are the worst characters in the entire franchise.
Yeah, they suck a lot.
Dude, like I look, I never in my entire life have heard girls talk the way that these girls talk in this film about like, oh, you're a whore, you're a slut, you're like no, like I've never like the whole scene with when Lori's with her mom in the kitchen, she's like, ooh, mommy, and she's like finger fucking the bagel basically. Like
yeah,
nobody, like, oh, he touched me, mom. Like who nobody talks like that. Nobody talks like that, especially to their parents. Like they just don't. And my understanding is Rob Zombie let that dialogue just kind of like grow naturally between Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton and I forget what the chick's name is who plays Linda, but he let that sort of thing just kind of build. He told them like, hey, we want you to talk about this, and however you guys do it, do it. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my understanding is how he did it. Well, it didn't work, and they are so goddamn annoying. Like those three girls are annoying as hell, and I think Scout Taylor Compton redeems herself. This is what I personally think. Scout Taylor Compton redeems herself as a better actress in part 2. I cannot stand her in part 1. Like, I cannot stand her at all. And like her whiny voice and whatever. And Scout Taylor Compton is never going to come on our show because she's going to hear me talking about this. I'm going to be shitting on her.
Yep.
I think she redeems herself in part 2. She's much more real, much more believable. I hate the trio of girls in the remake. And comparing it to the trio of girls in the original, night and day, hands down, much different. They're annoying as hell. Like they're a hot group of girls. I'll give them that. But other than that, they're annoying as shit, man. They are so annoying.
No, I got to agree. And like, it wasn't, it wasn't too far off that honestly, this movie came out right in between when you and I were in high school. Like you had finished high school right before this movie came out. I had started high school right after that movie came out, basically.
Yeah, I'd been out for a few years, but yeah.
And I didn't start for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if the girls weren't like that when you were in high school,
right. They
weren't like that when I was in high school. Maybe we just have a very small worldview, but it sure seems like we would know. If there's one thing I know, it is Blaine knows a Midwestern high school girl.
That is true. That is absolutely true. That's true. So true.
Um,
No, dude, seriously though, I've never ever heard girls talk to each other like that.
No.
Never, ever, ever, ever have they ever heard, not saying that there aren't girls who do, but it was so overdone. And it was almost like, in a way, they were almost like if they were trying to like one up each other with everything that they were saying in their interactions. And and again, I go back to that scene with Dee Wallace Stone and Scout Taylor Compton in the kitchen. And I think she's talking about Mr. Nichols from the hardware store. She's like, Mr. Nichols, touch me, mommy. And she's like doing her finger to the bagel. And I was like, nobody talks like this. Like, she's 17. No 17-year-old girl talks like that to her mom in front of her mom and dad. They just don't, No. Felt very fake, felt very forced, felt very shitty dialogue, like Halloween Kills. That's what it felt like to me. But those were two hot takes that I watched. I might like maybe do that for every film that I watch this year. I'll come up with like a couple ideas, and if you want to do that going forward, we can just do that. I'm just thinking of this on the fly, but just like some very minor hot takes from each of these movies as we watch them. And I realize that we're going to watch them out of order. You've already watched 2018 and Kills. I haven't yet. I think I'm going to watch 2018 tonight. I'm just feeling it. Like, I'm in that mood to watch 2018. So I think I'm going to do that tonight. But yeah, man, it's full on Halloween season. We're doing it. We're doing our thing, watching movies. It's the weather's kind of holding out. We're, thinking about everybody who's listening and watching, who's going through the hurricanes down south. That sucks. Who knows if you're even able to see this right now, if you are watching, but we're thinking about you guys because the country in that, southeast portion of the country has really been affected by these storms. So we're thinking about you guys if you're down there watching and listening. But yeah, we hope you guys can somehow have a little bit of October if that's even possible. But yeah, man, that's really, it's kind of it for this episode. We're just doing the whole Halloween thing, man. That's where we're at.
Yeah, and if you're watching this show and you're liking the way that we're kind of taking it this October and getting into what makes this month special for us, give us your ideas of like what have you been up to this October to keep up the Halloween spirit and make sure that Halloween lives this October.
That's right. Because Halloween lives in our hearts, and it should in yours, not only in October, but all year long. Now you're just creeping me out.
Yes, it does, Blaine.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Halloween Lives. My name is Blaine Duncan. That is my brother, Austin, and we'll see you next week for episode number 82.